Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Blazing Banter with Fire Steve. Welcoming in today's guest, we have Safety Girl Tanya. And I screwed it up already. I was like, hey, which way am I going here?
I think one of my episode 3, you'll get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, which way am I pointing? It's like, you're on this side. Technically, like if I'm looking at my phone right now, you're on this side if I'm pointing, but you're actually, if I'm doing it properly, you're on this side. So yeah, get it right one of these days.
Yay, technology.
I think it's just figuring out how a mirror works. After 30 years, I still haven't figured out. One of these days, it'll come together.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Episode 3, here we go.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. No, it's awesome. So one of the cool things I want to bring up here is we got to meet in person recently.
Yes, and that was awesome to finally meet you and Victoria in person. That was, I know we've been following each other on TikTok for almost 2 years now, so
it's been a while because I'm basically at my 3-year anniversary on TikTok, like tomorrow or the day after.
Oh yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And then yeah, I think basically from the time you started, I think we've been kind of following each other. I feel like we've been mutuals since you were even before you hit your first 1,000 on there.
I think so, yeah, because I think both of our contents kind of lined up for a lot of the same audience and a lot of the same funny content and the same sounds, so it worked out.
Well, you think about it too, like we operate in a lot of similar circles, and especially like coming at it from the blue collar Alberta oil field specifically, like the tighter you get into it, and we got a lot of creators in that same space that, you know, fill that area, and you know, we've all interacted with each other's content over the years, and it just shows it's that collaboration aspect that I love about social media. That's the thing that keeps me coming back to it, is just coming up with some of those fun ideas and collaborating on stuff.
Exactly. And it's been kind of cool to be able to interact with people that are all over the province and all over the country. And even I've been, doing some stitches with some people in the States. And slowly as that, my followers get larger, I'm interacting with more of them, and I'm picking up on what people that they're following. So it's kind of awesome.
Well, it's kind of like a huge Venn diagram, because I know I've been in some live streams too where you go in and you got a couple of people that you follow or they follow you back in the live, but they don't know that both of them know you. And then they're like, oh, hey, Fire Steve's in here, or hey, Safety Girl's in here. And then the other person's like, wait, you know them? Yeah, I know them. And then, oh, I know them too. And then you realize that everybody's interconnected in different ways. So maybe like my example is, I got the oil field side, but I also got the firefighting side. And in many cases, there's some overlap.
Exactly. And I'm finding as I'm using social media just to have fun and, poke fun at some drivers and poke fun at some supervisors, I'm also having more interactions a little bit through the lives. I'm not super comfortable going live with a lot of people, namely because of where I work and the things that I do. I can't say a lot of stuff, and I might want to run my mouth in a live, get myself in trouble. But through those interactions, I'm actually meeting people in real life. Like you said, I've met you and Victoria a couple weekends ago. Even just this weekend, I came back from a little pig roast hosted by Warren, and, got to meet people there that, are from his different circles. And then, like you said, with the Venn diagram, we've got a few mutuals. I got to meet Tracy from Saskatoon.
Yep.
We've been following each other for a couple of years, and just happened to be at that same event. And it's amazing how you're actually interacting with those people, and just by having conversations around a campfire. I met this weekend a woman who graduated 2 years before I did, at a school 20 minutes down the road from my high school. She lives half an hour north of me now. We actually have a few common people in our real lives in common. And it's like, wow, it's a big world, but it's amazing how close you are to getting some of those interactions close to home.
Well, and it's funny how, like, yeah, you said that, like, it's a big world, but it gets smaller. And it goes back to that whole 6 degrees of separation, how we're all interconnected. You know, they're basically we're 6 degrees separated from everybody anywheres.
Exactly.
I think the most interesting one that I can think of recently that happened. So my kids, you know, we listen to the Wiggles quite a bit. The Australian kids band. They like the Wiggles was a soundtrack in our house, and we went to their concerts multiple times because I think the first time we took the kids, I don't even think the boy was born yet. Anyway, or maybe he was. Maybe it was just baby. We took him to one in Edmonton, so we went to that, and that was an exciting thing. You know, the kids all excited. And then we went to, I know Vic took the kids to quite a few more in Lloyd, like they come to Lloydminster quite a bit. So I went one time. So just thinking of that. Now, one of the mutuals I met through TikTok here, and I think just commenting, her dad basically is one of the original Wiggles.
Oh, okay.
And then I think that's where I originally started following her from. And then a different video, her talking about more of a serious topic, and I commented on it. And then we became mutuals there. And I completely forgot about her dad being one of the original Wiggles, being her dad was Greg, or is Greg. And so I'm going through, and then she's making other videos on what it was like to grow up in the household, you know, as being part with a dad that was one of the Wiggles. You know, what did birthday parties look like? What did events look like? And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah, we're mutual. So once again, there you just look at that 6 degrees of separation from somebody that's like, my kids watch them all the time on TV, play their videos, and we have that connection point. So it's kind of interesting.
Excellent. I don't think I've gotten any huge mutuals like that, but it's slowly as you're interacting with more people, right?
It's putting yourself out there is the big thing. Like, you don't know who you're going to interact with. And that's the cool thing. Like, even with doing this podcast, that was the big thing is you meet people, you see a snapshot of their content. You see a snapshot of who they are. And this is a good avenue to get to know people a little bit deeper, talk about some of the things that are important to a person, and just like have a more open conversation. Kind of like doing a live stream, but without all the chatter of other people coming in the guest boxes and comments flying around. I like to do more.
So much noise and so much distractions. And that's another reason I can't go into some of the lives. Once you get more than 2 or 3 people trying to talk over each other, I don't see any fun in it. And I lose track of who's even speaking to me because I'm also trying to keep up with the comments. And sometimes it's nice just to watch from the comments.
I find it's a balancing act. And especially, I found the hardest thing to manage personally is when you've got one guest in the box, or if you're doing like a co-host live or anything like that. Because you're monitoring the comments, you don't want to leave anybody out, especially if there's only a few people and they're coming in to chat with you, and then you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody. If you've got 3 or 4 people in there, sometimes the conversation breaks away to where you're not actively talking, so then I can catch up on the comments or do whatever.
Yeah.
It's not bad when the comments just kind of roll on their own. Like, you know, you could have one person in the box having a conversation such as this, but then you've got people who are chatting with each other in the comment section, because then you don't feel like, okay, you don't feel pressured to have to, you know, put all your attention there, because it's hard to manage a conversation and have side conversations at the same time. It's no different than, you know, you're sitting there having coffee with somebody and your phone keeps blowing up and you got to respond to text messages. That's the way I feel. It's like,
exactly. I can only multitask so much.
and I guess it can be overwhelming. And that's where I find, I either need to have more people in or just myself. But the problem with being it myself, or when you just go solo, is then everything's on you. You're the entertainment. You've got to keep everybody entertained for that period of time. So that's where it gets a little trickier.
Exactly.
What else was I thinking there? So going back to like who you met. So actually, a funny story about Warren. So Warren was actually one of the people that helped me get my first 1,000 on TikTok. Like, I went into his live because I forget how. And once again, it was early on. You just start following people. I think there was somebody in his box that I was mutuals with or was following. Actually, I think that's how it worked. And I'm following him, and then of course you're in there. You're like, hey, I'm so and so on Fire Steve, trying to hit 1,000 so I can go live. Because at that point, you know, now I think they've changed the rules a little bit to where you can get in at 500. Yeah. But at that point, you had to have 1,000. So it's like, hey, you're just grinding it. It's just like having conversations with people. Frick, I'll throw you a follow.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3. So it was 3 years ago in August when they did that first pig roast, and I know that's when he was talking about doing the first big meetup, and a bunch of people went to that one there in Delburn. That event there, he's like, "Oh, you gonna come?" And I'm like, well, because I just got on TikTok in July, I'm like, I can't really shift gears and plan time off or anything like that. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I appreciate the invite. But Warren is the first person from TikTok I met in person because he was when he first started hotshotting.
Okay.
He We met up at the Petra Pass. He's like, hey, I'm in Lac La Biche. I'll be fueling up. Come say hi if you want. I'm like, yeah, for sure. So I whipped up there. Me and him shook hands, bullshitted for a little bit because that's when he first started working for Kelly. Then also too through a live stream, we found out that we're more connected than we originally thought because how did that work? His cousin was a captain on the fire department when I first started on the fire department back in 2006.
Small world.
Right? Like exactly small world. So that's where I found that interesting, especially when you're like, oh, I went and met up with Warren, and that's I like Warren for that. Like he's always been an easygoing guy and really good at bringing people together. I found.
He is, absolutely. I mean, I probably never would have met Toonie if, we hadn't just said, hey, you know what? We're up in Grand Prairie at the Stompede. If you're around, let's try to meet up. And yeah, they weren't able to make it for the whole day, but they popped in. We got to hang out for a little bit, just wander around, chit chat. And then it's like, okay, now we can move on. We'll see you in a couple of weeks at your pig roast. And yeah, hopefully more events like that. And, any little chance to get together and meet people is always a good thing. It's always good to network.
Totally, and that exactly. And you sometimes just got to take that step out and just say, hey, what are you doing? I know that's the challenge I typically find. Be cut out for a sec.
Yeah.
um, anyway, as I was saying, sometimes you just gotta like reach out and check that out. And I found that the challenging thing for me is whenever I'm traveling, I'm either at work or I'm at home. And I would say 90% of the time when I leave home, if we go anywhere else, or if I'm going anywhere other than work, the family's with because we've got appointments in Edmonton or we got something on the go. So then, and kind of my rule is like if I've got my family, if I'm doing family things, I'm not planning meetups. I'm not meeting up with anyone in that sense. If I run into somebody at like Costco in St. Albert, cool beans, but I'm not going out of my way because you got to separate it somehow because otherwise it just it can become a free for all, and some larger creators have run into that where it's like they don't get a break.
Exactly. And you need to protect your kids too. They're the ones that didn't decide to be on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and become a public figure. They're enjoying the ride. Hey, my dad's Fire Steve, but they need their time with dad and they need their time with mom, and you guys need together as a family. You don't need someone always coming up to you and bugging you and harassing you.
And luckily I haven't had that. I know Quentin did a video on that before, and people were like running up to him, and he's out with his fiance and her child, and that was a big thing. He's like, listen, he's like, I'd love to meet people, but he's like, if I'm out with my family, please respect my privacy. And I'm like that. And some people had a hard time being like, well, but you put yourself out there. It's like anybody who, whether you're an actor, a musician, anything like that, you got to have your you time as well. And content creation is no different on that. People put themselves out there, and hey, we enjoy it, and we wouldn't be where we are without the supporters and the followers and all that. But that doesn't give free, unabated access to our personal lives.
Exactly. My social media is public. I don't, if someone does recognize me, great. I think I've only actually ever had one person recognize me in a gas station. I think the Petro Canadas are kind of where people meet up.
Yeah.
But, just a random, same industry, same, fracking industry. He was a firefighter and just happened to be, I was in at my regular Petro Pass grabbing drinks for the road, and, they were fueling up all their rigs. So great. But I don't have kids dragging kids around. I'm not out with my family all the time. So those are kind of cool interactions. But I can see definitely with when you've got kids and stuff like that, you don't need people harassing you all the time.
Well, that's the big thing. And I'm pretty sure when I made a video on that, I said the same thing. I'm like, if it's me, myself, come up, say hi. Just come up, say hi, be friendly, all that. I'm totally open to that. Vic, I usually drag her around and stuff. If it's just the two of us, I'm like, hey, so-and-so wants to meet up. I try to arrange that stuff, especially for in areas that we aren't that frequently.
Yeah,
But for the most part, it's like, yeah, if I'm with my family doing my thing, you can message me and say, hey, I saw you, or depend. Like I said, for me, I just kind of put out that thing saying, if you see me with my family, respect my privacy. Now, when you came out to the combat challenge, a little bit different. We had some friends that we've met through the app, and
exactly.
and that's also the other thing too is I've talked about this before, where you kind of got like circles. I think of it like a bullseye. And you got like, you're in the innermost circles, your closest friends, whether it's significant other or best friends or people that you're interacting with all the time, family, that sort of thing. Then you've got your good friends, people that, are kind of important to your life, people that would have been in your wedding party, that sort of thing. And then you've got your friends, people you went to school with, people you work with, people you like, but you're not spending you might go camping once a year.
Yeah.
And then you got acquaintances, and then in the social media world we got mutuals, and that's where I started using that term a little bit more, because just because you are mutual followers, and in these apps it always says, oh, you're friends, doesn't necessarily mean you're friends yet. So it takes a while to build up a friendship.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, we've had each other's number for a couple of years now, and just, it's nice to be able to drop a text here and there, but, still be involved in lives, but understanding that everybody on social media has our own lives. It just happens to, overlap when we're online and occasionally out in the public.
Well, and it worked out good too, and I super appreciate you making the drive, because it wasn't just a thing where you're like, oh, I'm 15 minutes away, because how far it was, what, an hour and a half, 2 hour drive?
2 hour drive, yeah. I mean, Emma had me beat for sure, but again, because she was going, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go see her, and if Steve has a chance to visit, great. If not, just another supporter.
Well, and it was appreciative of that too, and I wish I had more time to actually interact with Emma, and Monica was there too. I wanted to, but I was busy. my
it was
focus
your
was
anniversary. It was a big day.
well, and even too, like, my focus was on the competition initially, and that was a whole lot of fun. And
Yeah.
I'm super glad to, because I put in all that work. Because even me and Vic were talking about that afterwards. It's just like, if you would have done worse than last year or just as good, she's like, I was gonna make fun of you. I'm like, and you would have been completely, validated for that, because I've been bragging it up, like, oh, I'm doing all this training, I'm running the stairs, I'm hitting the gym. And if I would have done all that and done the same or worse than last year, I would have been like, the hell you doing, man?
You deserve it completely. But no,
But
you did good, and actually, everybody did really well at that competition. I was quite impressed with everybody that pushed all the way through. Might have been past the buzzer, but they finished.
absolutely. Have you ever taken part of anything like that before?
Never a competition. I mean, I did some training with the Penhold Volunteer Fire Department way back when I was 20, but we never did any competitions like that. We were still fairly quiet, and Penhold was much a lot more community funded stuff or volunteer stuff in the community versus actual responding, which was nice. If we wanted to do that, not actually have to respond to calls.
And I feel like that's the most important thing. Like, actually, the most important thing is being ready for response. But because you don't want to be that face that people are only seeing when it's negative. It's a bad situation, it's somebody's worst day. And if it's always like, man, the only times I see you guys or girls is that, it's a terrible situation. That's why I think the community involvement, as far as like our first responders, especially volunteer fire departments, that sort of thing, is very important, because you have that interaction, especially, people of all ages, especially little ones. They know, hey, these are the people that are here to help me in case there's an emergency. And same thing with adults. You get people that you build up that relationship. Some people might be skeptical, well, no, I can take care of myself. And it's like, no, we're here to help you out in your time of need. That's what our job is to do.
Exactly.
So I think having that FaceTime is super important.
Exactly. And I mean, for a small town, those little events put on by the RCMP or the fire department or the public works of the town, those all bring people out, and you get to know your neighbors, especially in those smaller towns. sure, everybody on the one street might know each other, but you don't, as the town grows and grows, all the new people, you need to interact with everybody. So
Well, sometimes it's
it's
nice
like,
being able to put a face or put a name to the face. It's somebody you see at the grocery store all the time, but you don't really know who that is. And then you're at an event and you're like, hey, and then you
I
start
recognize.
talking.
Exactly. I know you. I've seen you around, and now we can actually have that time to interact where it's not somebody's running out the door, got to get to work, got to get the kids to school. Absolutely.
It's the hustle and bustle. And I guess on that note, too, pick on your profession a little bit, talking about that whole having FaceTime, because working in the safety aspect, there's so many memes out there, so many memes about making fun of safety in the blue collar industry. It's like, oh, here comes safety.
Oh, that.
And I think that's it's a big thing, getting that FaceTime with people, not only in the negative, because there's times where you got to wrap knuckles and be like, no, don't do that, because this is going to cost us work or cost us contract, or you're going to get yourself hurt or injured or something to that effect. But it's also interacting with people on the positive, so that way you've got that FaceTime ahead of it, so that way, oh, you're not just here to give me trouble. We're here to interact, and then they can maybe take some of your advice or criticism with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I'd like to try to be out in the field as much as possible, because safety shouldn't be just responding. I shouldn't be showing up there when there's a problem. I'd much rather be there to prevent the problems. Hey, you know what? You need PPE. I just happen to bring extra hard hats. For example, one of my last site inspections visits, really, it was more of a visit than anything.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys, or actually two guys on two different shifts, said, geez, great, glad you're here. My hard hat liner is cracked. I can't get the knob to tighten anymore. Could have told, how long has it been broken? Well, about a week or two. Well, you could have said something. I could have had that fixed yesterday. But unfortunately, they only see you showing up and like, oh, now you're here. You're here now. You can fix our problems. So it's trying to be out there, interact a little bit more before they have those problems, whether it be just small PPE things to, I really don't know what I'm doing. I don't think I should be doing it, or right up to having a full blown incident. You don't want to be the one that just always comes out for the incidents and you don't want to be the big bad wolf coming down there. So try
Well,
to get out there as much as possible.
Well, and that's a big thing. It's being more proactive than reactive, and I think that's a big thing we strive for. We don't always succeed. I feel like that's something I've been doing quite a bit of in my content, especially in the last year, since I kind of shifted gears primarily from oil field to implementing the fire stuff. And I feel like I went hard to the fire side. Now I'm trying to get back to that balance of like, hey, here's a little bit of oil field, here's a little bit of firefighting. But the big thing was, especially on with the wildfire season we had last year, is everybody's waiting till the last possible minute. It's like, oh, I need to get ready now. It's kind of getting it out there to say, hey, look, you don't have to wait till the emergency's there to get prepared for it. Because if you're ready, if you're proactive in the approach, hey, you've gone through, you've packed your bag, or you know what you need to pack in case of an evacuation or something of that effect, or you know where your egress is or what you need to have ready to go. It's a simple checklist. And especially if you kind of run through a few drills at home personally, whether it's just a fire drill for a house fire, or prepping for an evacuation in threat of a wildfire or natural disaster, is that you've practiced it, you feel more confident, you've got that muscle memory to go through it. So then you don't have that panic setting in, and it's not being like do or die at that point in time, and then you realize you left home without the things that you needed. Same thing with safety. The big thing there is getting ahead of it and developing that relationship, saying, hey, this is for you. We want to see you go home with all your 10 fingers and 10 toes, 2 eyeballs, and whatever else, appendages and limbs. We want to see you go home whole at the end of the day. You came to work whole. We want to see you go home in that same nature.
Exactly. And with my company, we have a lot of entry-level positions where these are the first oil field jobs that some of these kids, 19-year-old kids to 35-year-old men that are, hey, I need a career change. This is new to them, and they don't understand the being away from home for 2-3 weeks at a time. So kind of trying to instill those good habits of, like you said, making a checklist. Hey, before you head out, do you have your hard hat? Is it working? Did you check your boots? Do you need new laces before you head up there? Or am I going to come up there and see that you've used zip ties to keep your boots together? you know, start that now when you're just getting into it. Develop those routines, make sure everything is good to go. Then when you get up 6 hours away from home and then another 2 hours into the bush, you have everything you need and you're not in a panic, and then you're not putting yourself at risk of using damaged PP or not having the stuff that you need on site. And try to start that off when they're just new into the industry, and then let them know that there are supports. Like if you do need something, you can let me know before you leave, or when you get up there, give me a call. You don't need to suffer in silence. Just call somebody.
And I think that's you hit the nail on the head there. I said nailed the head on the, I don't know what I was going to say. You nailed it right there. Hit the nail on the head with the whole, you don't need to suffer in silence. Because I think that's the big thing that when people get into it, well, I'm working a blue collar job. It's the oil field. It's rough. It's tough. It's supposed to be dirty and it's supposed to suck. I'm supposed to freeze my fingers off at -40. It's like, no, you don't. I've been there
You're
where
still going to. You're still
you're
going
still
to.
going to. There's
But
going to be the
you're going
times.
to have the gear for it.
It's knowing what gear. And when you started talking about footwear, and I want to kind of get on that soapbox for a minute there, to anybody who's thinking about getting into any sort of blue collar job, realistically any job, because I think this translates to any career, even if you're working in an office building, proper footwear. Proper footwear makes a huge difference, especially when you're going to be on your feet all day. That's the main thing. Like if you're going to be standing on a rig floor, on metal flooring, and I got a damn mosquito flying around. If you're going to be standing on hard flooring, or you're going to be walking around in the bush, stuff like that, you want to make sure you have proper, comfortable footwear that's going to keep your feet warm and dry, because I've had it happen where I've been out with shitty footwear and I've, cheaped out. Oh, I'll get away with these $40, steel-toed boots from Walmart. And then you realize that they aren't comfy. They might work for an hour or two, but after you've been in them for 12 hours for a 2-week shift, your feet are killing you and you want something comfortable.
And if you look at all of the industry injuries, other than fingers, backs are right up there in the top 5 for industry injuries. And that's, from sudden impact injuries to long-term wear and tear injuries. And if you start protecting your feet, you're going to protect your back.
It's a foundation you're building from the bottom up.
Exactly. And that's why, slowly you're starting to see more companies come out with boot allowances and things like that. Now, boots are expensive and they're definitely a personal item, comfort fit to each individual. So a lot of companies can't just give you boots as part of their PPE. And unfortunately, the cost for the companies with all of their PPE costs, boots are just something that we're not probably ever going to be able to cover, at least especially for some small companies. We're never going to be able to afford to pay for everybody's boots every year. But they can help you out with the boot allowance. I know that's what our company does. Show that you've been here for a year. We'll give you some help with getting new boots, especially because we know that you're walking on different surfaces. You're standing all day. Icy conditions, up and down. We want to protect your feet because we want to keep you safe and working without having to take off for, oh geez, my back is bad and now I've got chiropractic appointments, and it just progresses from there. So if you protect your feet, and we can try to help you do that, we will.
Well, the big thing there, like you said, it's a personal item. It's personal preference. Everybody has their own preference as far as boots go. So lightning round, what is your favorite type of boot? Like when you think steel-toed footwear, what's your go-to?
My go-to right now are Dakota, just regular 8-inch lace-up boot. I wish I would have bought both pairs because they were on sale at Mark's on clearance. Mark's on clearance in the spring is probably one of the better places to get boots. I know everyone can go everywhere from the really fancy Red Wing boots, but sometimes Dakotas just work. And mine have the thin slate. I wear them spring, winter, fall, even in the summer. For the most part, they're not horribly warm. Now, granted, I'm not out in the field every day, but for when I am, they are super comfy. And they're really cool because they have a little dial thing at the back of the heel.
Oh, yeah.
So they have built-in ice cleats. I know they're not intrinsically safe, but for my industry, I don't need it.
Yeah.
Um, and I know for some places they actually count the number of cleats on the bottom. I know
Oh,
they don't match up to certain oil companies, but that's why we do the research and make sure we do give you the right stuff before you go on. But those are just cool because I'm a forgetful person. So at least I know that I have at least a basic ice tread on the back of my boot. So
well,
when
and
I do
especially
get my
too,
cleats.
when you do get called out, there's an incident, something like that, you're getting called at 2 a.m. to respond to a rig site someplace or someplace where you're going, and it's like, hey, the main cause of the incident had to do with because it had warmed up and everything melted. Now everything's sheer ice.
Yeah,
Like you said, when you get called in the middle of the night and we get prepared for the job that we do, same thing as firefighting. I get ready for, hey, this is what could happen. I'm remembering my gear. But at the same time, too, when we get called in the middle of the night, sometimes we don't remember everything. We're not firing on all cylinders because we anticipated to have a full night's sleep. So the big thing there is, you're looking at, okay, I have to get out the door, especially when you get called, hey, there's an incident, that sense of urgency is going. Ice cleats might be that thing of like, you might be forgetting. You're like, oh, well, I didn't need it the last place. There was good snowpack, there was good traction. But you get there and you're like, holy crap, this is bad. Click, you're ready to go. Better than
it's
nothing.
and normally I do keep a tote of all of my gear, like all my respirator mask, extra filters, coveralls, hard hat. They're all in the back of the truck ready to go. My problem is that I usually end up giving away my personal PPE to somebody who needs it on site. Safety glasses, sure, you can have these. I can sit in my truck for the rest of the afternoon, I guess. But I would rather give you a pair of my safety glasses or my ice cleats if that's going to be able to keep you working safely and keep you on site. Because there are some sites that are quite particular. If you don't have them, you're not allowed on. So I know that I'm an overhead cost. So if I can keep you working and I have to leave and go back to town to get more, then I leave and come back.
And that's a big thing. It's looking at the whole picture there, and looking at the benefit of the company, what's going to keep that job moving forward, especially when it's a critical piece. And I've seen this, we've been stopped up on that before. When I did lots of work back in my previous life of running power tongs, there were times where we were called and you've got, consultants, and it's no fault of their own. It just has to do with, you got these winter projects that are firing up. They don't have a full lay of the land yet. Hey, I need the service. Get out here now. You get there and they're like, well, this person wasn't orientated. And the orientations only run here and here, maybe over here. So you got to fit within that framework. Well, we need, we're ready to run casing right now. Okay, that's cool. The company's like, we don't care. They have to do the orientation. This is when we do them. So then now you're tied up. So that becomes that thing of like, okay, the benefit of getting that job moving forward, what can we do to expedite this or anything? Or, sometimes too, they get somebody out of bed. Okay, we're going to run you through a quick nitty gritty orientation. When you're done the job, you're to come back at the full orientation and then you're good to go. But
Exactly.
it's planning and preparation. I've done a few projects, and the one thing you start realizing when you start doing the project work is you're not planning for the next day, you're planning for the next multiple days. And if this happens tomorrow or doesn't happen tomorrow, okay, well, this could be happening, especially when I was working up in Rainbow Lake. Everything was days away, well, or a full day away. To get somebody to GP was a 6-hour drive. So nobody was getting there immediately. So you kind of figure out how to work around that.
Exactly. I know I get a lot of comments. Gosh, that's a lot of orientations. Do we really have to do all of them? I'm like, you have to do these 16 orientations for me. That is company rules. I'm nice. You can challenge some of the exams, but you have to do the 16. Learn these 16. The rest of them are all client orientations. They're all basically the same with a few little tweaks here and there depending on field and facility. But for the most part, they're all the same. If you want to be able to be pulled for those jobs, you'll do them. Because the person that has the most orientations and is ready to go is going to go first. If we have to sit around and wait for a driver to do, a half-hour orientation, or say they show up and they don't have their common safety orientation, that's a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we need a truck, we need you on the road because you do have a 6-hour drive from home base up to Grand Prairie. So you need to get going. And if you're ready to rock and roll from day one, then you're golden. There's no delays for you. And time is money. So get to work. And
And
that's my job. Get ready to go to work.
But you want to make sure everybody's adequately prepared. And I find the CSO, the company I contract to, they've implemented that now. Like anybody coming on site needs to have that CSO. And I think, and maybe you can shed a little bit more insight on it, maybe not. I feel like the CSO, the main goal there is because so many companies have their own orientation. They're like, okay, how can we simplify this? How can we keep people from having to do 20 different, company specific orientations? You guys still got to do a site specific. Like when you get there, hey, here's the muster areas, here's the lay of the land at this facility or this, this plant site you're working at. But as far as the commonality, the things that are common between oil companies, it was always, hey, if you're going above 3 meters, you gotta have your fall protection on. If you're working in a sour environment, clean shaven was always a thing. But if you're working in a sour environment, know where your SCBAs are. There was always a common litany of things that kind of kept everything together, and I feel that that was brought in place to kind of save some time and some overlap, I guess.
And I think it also shows that there's a good standard across the industry, that these are the basic standards. Buddy. Now, I know that there's some bigger companies that have put lots of time and energy into their orientations. Starting to go through more and different client orientations, they're all still falling back to the same 11 life-saving rules. And so yeah, that course covers it all. You kind of get it as your entry level welcome to the oil patch safety course on top of your H2S, and then you're able to start work pretty much anywhere. And now, of course, some of the bigger companies have put the time and effort into the big production videos, but there's a lot of these little small companies out there that are just, startups. They've broken off. They don't have the funds to maintain a huge database to keep, 17 different orientations. Like, going to use Synovus as an example, just because I know the old Husky system.
Yep.
The Husky learns, Synovus learns. Every single site has a site specific, plus, 7 different orientations just for that site. That's a company that has the behind them to support that. But some little mom and pop oil company doesn't have the money to be putting that into their orientation. So they understand that these are the common safeties, and if everybody's following the same rules, then they should have a safe site. You're still going to have your specific site orientations, mind you, for, like you said, for musters, and every facility is a little bit different, but you have the basic understanding going in.
And I think that's like bringing up the big companies. And I was actually going to pick on Husky mainly because they're not here anymore. And I know they had quite the safety program, because I know many, well, not many, but I know a few of the ex-Husky safety personnel. And they invested a lot of time and money and production value. And same with Synovus. I did lots of work for them on the weapons range and elsewhere, Conklin primarily. And the big thing is yeah, they've invested a lot of time and they want their letterhead on it. And I find it's more of a, hey, we're proud of our company. Kind of a vanity project, but I mean, the big thing for them is they're proud of the production that they put in, and this is our commitment to safety. This is, kind of putting their money where their mouth is. But on that flip side, like you said, a lot of mom and pop oil companies, all of these small startups, they don't have the funding to invest in. They just want to make sure that they are baseline compliant, to make sure that if something happens, their ass is covered, and anybody who's coming on their site is covered as well. Whether it be for the regulator, whether it be AER, OH&S, etc. They want to make sure that they've got their bases covered. So they'll usually default to the stereotypical cookie cutter safety program, which, going back to one of the Husky safety guys, right from him, I heard there's no plagiarism in safety. If it's safety, basically it's free, open for anybody to use, because safety.
Exactly. And I mean, for the number of documents that I have shared between my former colleagues, to some friends that have gotten into safety, even some of the policies and things that I wrote for Lakeland College when I was helping write some safety work, some safe work practices and part of their safety manual. Safety is safety is safety. So why would I spend my time reinventing the wheel? Sure. Did I have to maybe take my oil field safety program and reword it for a public sector operation? Absolutely. But they still had oil and gas things at the college. They still had ag stuff. So, you still have to fine tune it for your own specific needs. But why spend all of that time reinventing the wheel when so many other companies have done such a good job with it?
Well, and the time and effort and just, personnel hours invested into developing these programs, because you look over time and just, I look at it between the oil field and also in the fire aspect as well. We learn from the past mistakes, and unfortunately, these safety rules are written in blood. Something had to happen in order for somebody to go, oh, hey, we're doing this wrong, or this was a silly way to go about it. We need to do this better. So then that becomes a thing of like, okay, yeah, going about it this way, we're taking a big risk. So now we're going to do it this way because this will be safer, but we learned because of an incident, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. And that's part of my job now too, is when we do have those big incidents where we have to do the serious investigations, and it takes a lot out of the company to go, how are we going to change our policies and procedures? Because it's not always the worker's fault.
Yep.
A lot of the times it's systemic through supervision and just bad communication, poorly written policies, poorly written procedures. So you have to take the time to step back and inform everybody about those changes.
I think the most interesting thing I've pulled out of safety, and it actually came up when I did my fire leadership course here for like the WUI incidents. I did that on Thursday and Friday in Slave Lake. The thing that they brought up in that course, and that just came up in the Synovus orientation, I believe, is talking about employee risk. So the amount of experience you have, like the length of time you've been doing that job, where you're most at risk. And it makes sense that, okay, well, you start off with a substantial amount of risk as a green hand. You don't know anything. And then the more experience you have, that, your competency increases, you're less risky of an employee. But then once you hit about that 5 to 7 year mark, you start climbing exponentially. And you hit a point where you're actually a riskier employee or worker with more experience than the greenhorns coming in and
Yeah.
breaking that down.
And that's pure complacency. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
has happened to me before, nothing's going to happen now until it does. Until
Exactly.
you forget that one critical step, because yeah, it's my 5 years, I'm the holidays booked, the wife's at home, the kids are ready, the camper's packed, and I'm going home. I just complacent and forgot to do the one thing, and now I'm stuck at work for 4 days because we've had an incident and I'm in the hospital, I'm injured.
Yeah.
Definitely. And like I said, the 5 years, that's about where people start to need that career change, or they need more retraining, because yeah, complacency completely.
Well, and that's like even some of the bigger, fire incidents and stuff like that too. It's like people get complacent. Well, it hasn't happened. This hasn't happened to me before, until it does. So it's taken that time to, really look at it and dive into it. And I've been, guilty of that myself. I've gone and be like, oh, I'll just quickly do that. And then you think afterwards, well, yeah, it worked out, but that could have gone sideways quickly. And what if it had? Yeah, I'm perfectly fine. But if it hadn't,
You
then,
know,
yeah, like that. And then I'm there missing an appendage or a limb, or maybe I'm not coming home that day. So it's, encouraging people to take that long look and just making sure that we're doing things properly, and, not rolling our eyes at when the safety man or woman comes around and is like, hey, we want to have a conversation. What's your protocols? What's your procedures? What do you like about this? And I think there's times where obviously where companies are trying to cut costs, they're trying to save. So it's like, okay, well, we don't want to invest in this fancy equipment that'll make somebody's life easier. You guys have been doing it this way and you've been efficient at it. And obviously as workers, you try to find the quickest, most easiest way to get a job done. And that's where it's trying to find that balance between, okay, what if we're trying to get that done within a time frame because, time constraints, whatever, maybe, hey, put it up to the bosses and be like, hey, look, if we had this would make things a lot easier and it would keep our safety higher because people aren't wanting to take that shortcut.
yeah, exactly. One of the companies that I did work with in the past, we did a lot of hand bombing of our lines. Um, Technically, it would have been considered from the Stone Age. Now looking at what they've done in the last 5 years since I worked with them last, they've gotten a lot more. I think almost 90% of their procedures now are automated. They are using computer-driven programs to run the equipment so that eliminates a person from the line of fire. We don't have to worry about someone pulling a high-pressure line like that through their hand. That was one of my most favorite ones, was the high-pressure cut through that.
Ooh.
But again, complacency. We're in a rush. We're going to skip a step. Now we have a major incident in our hands. And that, again, changed the company to look at what they were going to do going forward for the safety equipment. And a lot of them, it's actually been kind of nice. I didn't work this last turnaround out in Lloydminster, but I'm seeing pictures from friends and old coworkers and, seeing the new technology and the new tools that they're getting. And that makes me happy, knowing that my friends, my old coworkers, they're still being safe out there. And the company is actually putting their money where their mouth is.
Well, that's the thing. If you can decrease downtime and basically better longevity of your workforce, keep your workers happy. Because the thing is, too, is eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, I'm not happy at this job. This sucks. I'm going to go someplace else. Keeping that workforce there, I think over time, the payoff is there by keeping, your competent people around. Because it is hard finding people. As much as, everyone says like, oh, there's, not a lot of work out there. I always find like, geez, it always seems like somebody's looking for employees right now. It always seems like there's somebody with a help wanted, or there's like, especially I found it, was it last winter and even the winter before, rigs. Like we got service rigs in Alberta that aren't running, not because they don't have work, it's because they don't have the staff to work.
Exactly. And we seem to always have ads on Indeed for either the labor positions or the truck driving ones. Now, truckers, they like to, some people need to switch jobs every couple of years. Some people really like doing the off road. Some people try it and they're like, nope, this isn't for me. It's time for me to go back and do, my highway driving, or I'm going to go back to running in stateside because that's what they really like to do. So yeah, seems like we always have the turnover, but we try to do what we can to keep them, by providing the good safety program, trying to provide, hopefully little perks like that, and really some good wages, because a lot of these, the new kids coming in, they're supporting families too. If they're not supporting, a wife and kids, they're helping out at home with mom and dad or whatever living arrangement they've got. They still have bills to pay. So we try to do the industry average or above industry average for the wages. Sometimes people just need to move on and they find something else through their current job to move forward to.
Well, and that's what I always encourage people to do. Because I know my oil field content, it's funny, like thinking back to like social media stuff. TikTok's kind of a hodgepodge. I've got a little bit of everything. The oil field kind of got me started on there. Then the fire stuff really blew up. But I found and then, I've got I've got my Instagram, I've got my YouTube channel, which I'll plug it real quick here. If anybody's looking for the podcast, it's available on the YouTube stream. It's on my YouTube channel at Fire Steve. If you want to see the video, you can see our smiling faces and my hands doing what Italian hands do when we talk. So if you want to see the video, you want to see the live stream, that's available to stream on YouTube. Otherwise, this podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, and all the other places where podcasts are at. But anyway, what I found is my oil field stuff did really well on YouTube. I actually got one video that talked about, it was a TikTok I made, somebody from Quebec was asking, is it worth getting into the oil field? And this was either early 23 or late 2022. So I took this video, I think it was like a 2.5 minute one, and it's classified as a regular YouTube video because it's over 60 seconds long. So it's not a YouTube short. That video is sitting at about 18,000 views right now over the course of like a year and a half, something to that effect. Now, shorts are like TikToks. Like, you get a shit ton of views, or sometimes they don't do well at all. Long form videos on YouTube, I've got maybe 3 that have over 1,000 views, maybe. And that's with me posting for well over a year. So I found like that was the big thing there. A lot of people asking about getting into the oil field. And the biggest thing is, well, I just, I want to make all the money. And it's like, you can't just focus on the wage alone. That's part of it. And that's a very important part of it.
Mm.
However, if you're going to hate what you're doing, you're going to hate your life in that process, like being in camp. Some people can't do it.
No,
Some people
some
can't be away.
people, they cannot be away. I've had a couple of times where I've had to go bring people home, and they just can't deal with just the distance. Some people, it's their families. They don't adjust to having mom or dad away for that long, and that's cool. I
Yep.
mean, there are lots of other careers out there in oil and gas that you can do locally too. You don't have to always be the work away from home person. Are the perks and the wages better? For the most part, yeah. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he told me what some job offers he'd had up in Fort Mac were. And I'm like, the wage is really nice. He's like, yeah, but I wouldn't see my wife. By the time I do the 2 hour drive home and on the bus, never see each other. So you have to pick that life balance too.
Well, and that's the big thing. You want the longevity out of it. And that's
Yeah.
one thing I found with operating. I like the project work. I like the hustle and bustle a lot more, but I found from the lifestyle perspective when I made the change to operating from, doing the project work, because I went from rigs to kind of doing lease inspection, minor projects to getting put on some major projects when I was up in Rainbow. And then after that, an operating job opened up. And my schedule before was, well, when there's work, there's work. And when there isn't, there isn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of like an all or nothing type approach. So there were times where I was gone for, a month at a time. And then there's times I was sitting for a month at a time. So it was like, well, shit, I can't really schedule this out. And when the operating job opened up, it's like, hey, I know when I'm at work and I know when I'm not. And at that point, I'm like, no, I want something with a schedule. I spent a lot of time not having that. So then it gave some sort of routine, even though there wasn't really a full routine or structure, it gave me some semblance of that. So it worked out super well in that regard. And I was learning a new skill. I feel like now I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I could probably use another challenge, but then that's when I just start doing stuff like this or making content. It's like, hey, this is something where I can challenge my brain in other areas. There's going to be the days at work where I am going to be challenged because stuff's going sideways and you have to think on your feet. But there's other days too where it's business as usual and you got to find those challenges elsewhere.
Exactly. And like I started as a medic. So that was one of those jobs where you kind of had a schedule, but you never knew where you were going to be, which was always interesting to me. Was it this week were you on a pipeline, service rig, and then when you switch companies, are you doing strictly drilling rigs? And for me, it was always a nice little challenge of, okay, well, where am I going? Got to see a lot of pretty country, work with a whole bunch of amazingly interesting people. Some a little more interesting than others, but
Mm-hmm.
you learned so much from that. Learned a lot of things about welding and pipelines and things, and even the safety aspect of it, just from being, the medic on site to when the safety person wasn't around. Well, can you go take pictures of this? You're going to be there for this. Can you fill out the incident report while they're there? Get a statement. And so you kind of learn and evolve as those jobs go on. Working at the drilling rig. Okay, well, a lot of butt time sitting in a seat. So yeah, I had an amazing rig crew. They're like, yeah, come on up. They were happy to have me, wipe down the dog house and just sit and visit and watch. That's how you learn. I also learned that wireliners at that time made a crap ton of money. So, and then that's where I went to after the medic. Kind of got tired of not ever being home and kind of being that nomad. It's like, you know what? I could use a home base.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we switched, got out of the medic stuff and went wirelining. So it was kind of a nice little transition back and using my other skills. So you can always learn something from a position and then take that and move on to the next one.
Well, it's very important to ask questions. And that's the big thing too, is if you don't ask those questions and if you don't inquire, and it's interesting too, because you see people, and I've worked, some medics or some people, well, this is my job. And obviously your job is to be there ready for medical aid. But I find some people just take it to that extreme. It's like, no, my job is to sit my butt in the seat, not to wander out whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And others get bored and want to learn a bit more. And there was a lot of times like before, actually, when I first started operating, there was a lot of times where I spent, Hey, what's this service doing? Even when I was managing projects, hey, what's this contractor doing? Like you have a broad overview. You know what the goal of this job is. Hey, we're doing a pipeline repair. We're installing this at a facility. We're putting a tank farm in here. But there's going to be minute details of like, well, how does your piece of equipment work? You go
Mhm.
up and you ask questions and you take that interest, and that just helps you learn better. Because and this is what I learned early on, because I always thought of like with consultants or project managers, stuff like that. I was like, okay, I always felt that they had to know all these things. But the thing is, you come from a certain discipline, whatever it may be, and I'll use rig consulting as a prime example. So I always felt that, well, you had to work your way up from the rig and learn all these other stuff. And typically that was most people would work their way up roughneck, motor hand, derrick hand, driller, push, consultant, or sometimes you go from drilling to consulting, however that worked. But there was lots of people I worked with. There were some that did wireline. There's some that did cementing. And I worked with a couple that worked just as a casing hand, as a tong hand. So you start realizing that you just need to know enough and you need to lean on your personnel that know and are trained in what they're doing, because that's what you're bringing in. You just need to manage the people. And on that topic as well, when I first started doing, the project stuff, you start learning that, okay, you go out and you work a 12-hour day, hard labor, and you're tired. You're dead at the end of the day. You're like, I want to have a shower, a meal, in bed, basically. That's physical tired. When you're mental tired, it's a whole different ball game, because at least when you're physical tired, you can hit the pillow and you're out. When you're mental tired, because your brain's racking, trying to plan the next step, plan the next thing, your mind's going, you haven't tired yourself out physically. So when your head hits the pillow, like you're fatigued, but you hit that pillow and you're like, shit, did I arrange this? Did I call for this? What's going on?
Exactly. You actually need probably twice the amount of time to wind down and let your brain forget about work stuff and keep doing, the relaxing part to get to that sleep.
Well, and
I
that's,
that's
yeah.
I suffer that every day. Everyone's like, "Well, why are you out doing stuff?" I am so mentally exhausted at the end of the day, and people are like, "Your safety. How can you be tired? You sat at a desk." I sat at the desk, but I have two phones going off, and people coming to my office, and deadlines, and stuff that is important for me to get done, so that you can keep going to work. And I joke when I have a bad day. I joke. Um, it's amazing. 3 clicks of a mouse and two forgotten deadlines on my end, you're done.
Yeah.
That company doesn't work. You know, the things that they say, oh, safe, it's just safety. But a lot of the safety programs are your licenses to work. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't have your core certificate because your safety person didn't schedule the audit and didn't keep up and make sure that audit got submitted, luck trying to get a job with one of the major players. They all rely on that core certificate to prove your competency, your company's competency in safety. You don't have an IFTA filing, your big trucks don't run. If you don't meet OH&S standards and can prove documents when they come knocking on the door, you're shut down. Like, people don't realize how much the little things that a safety person does keeps the actual company going. Now, some bigger companies have lots of people to do those, but for the mid to small companies, there's 1 to 2 people doing those. And then you throw an incident or an orientation on top of it. That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time out of your day, your weekends, your vacations. But those of us that actually come home exhausted mentally know that we've done what we can to keep our people safe and keep our people working.
Well, and that's, I think, the biggest misconception that a lot of people, and I've seen it a lot through, like I said, the field hands more so, especially at the lower levels. Like, I seen this actually happen to me. I was on a service rig in Saskatchewan one time. I remember being on the floor, and we had a tool hand out there. So anytime there's a tool hand, yeah, they're usually sitting in their truck until it comes time to actually assemble their stuff on the rig floor. And they're like, oh, it must be nice to just hang out in the truck all day. Except for that dude's sitting there figuring out calculations. He figuring out setting depths, this and that. Sometimes, hydraulics based on how much pressure to set their tool to make everything work effectively. Because everything that we're doing, if they screw up, we got to do it all over again. So it's like the mental stress. Sometimes it's like, hey, they get to chill out and just do whatever. no, like that mental stress, you need to, you're questioning everything. And did I calculate this right? Did I submit this form? Did this get filed appropriately? It's that stuff that gets you as you're walking over. Like the biggest thing for me is when my head hits the pillow and I'm like, oh shit, did I forget to call the air hand?
Well, and that's why, everyone says that they want to, oh, I want to be a consultant and I want to be a manager and a supervisor. Don't realize how much added stress and lack of sleep comes with those positions. Sometimes I would much rather just some days put on a green hat and have no one ask me a question and not have to worry about it. But that stuff is what I do best. So
that's a good question. How many old lease hands have you worked with that when you actually talk to them, you think, oh, they're just some old dude, driving the lunch truck, bringing the crew back and forth from camp. And you actually get talking to them and they've got more experience than the push and the consultant combined.
Oh, numerous times. Currently on my crew, I have 2 people over the age of 70, and both of them will outwork most of the younger guys on my crew. But when you look at their past experience, before they came to us, these guys were managers and sales reps, and they traveled all over, and they have seen more places than everybody else in the company combined. They are just happy to come out and, they know their job. Now, they're also now moved up to where they're running crews. They really, they don't necessarily want to, but they're the ones that can keep things going. They have the skills. They're trying to teach the younger guys that maybe don't have the mechanical ability. Hey, this is how we do it. Going to teach you so that you can do it yourself next time. And those are some of the best mentors, so long as they have the patience to deal with the younger kids, right? A lot of them come from that old school background of, what, just get out of my way. I'll do it myself. It's just easier.
You learn how to dodge a wrench real quick with some of them.
Yeah.
It's like dodgeball.
You don't need that. Don't listen to what safety said. You don't need that hard hat.
I agree with you there. I've worked with some of the older guys where some, like you said, they just push you out of the way. Well, screw it, you're taking too long. I'm just going to do it. But then you get to some that, they realize that their body can't quite do the things that they could do when they were younger. So they realize that I can't do this. So I need to mentor. If we want to get this job done, I need to mentor the younger ones in order to do it effectively. And that's the biggest thing I find. People got to really, like, especially when you start stepping into that leadership role, we always default to the same. And this was my earlier experience with it. I'm starting to improve as I've gotten more experience, both in oil field firefighting, is that you delegate that task and you observe what they're doing and you ask them, what the common goal is. Hey, this is what we need to accomplish. You ask them, hey, how are we going to do this? And I find if you can get people to buy in and get them to take ownership of their idea, and you vet their idea too, they're going to come up and they say, oh, I'm thinking, maybe they're going to spot a 1-ton picker truck. Okay, how are you thinking of doing this lift? Well, if I put my truck here and I was thinking of lifting it up this way, moving it this way, you kind of think through it and you're like, yeah, that'll work. So, okay, let's do it. If they tell you, well, I'm going to put it over here and I'm going to reach and I'm going to lift it over a bunch of stuff, you might be like, well, are you sure? Like, we got a bunch of stuff in the way. Is there a better place we can maybe relocate it? Like, kind of encourage them, but you still get some people to think of their own idea or basically make them think it's their idea, even though subliminally, it's you're kind of feeding the, hey, what'd you think about this? Oh yeah, that would work. I find you get a lot more buy-in than telling people you're going to come in and you're going to do this because I said so.
Yeah, give them a chance to make their own decisions, and you're still there to stop them from making the big bad ones that could cause the big wreck.
Yeah. No, and it's funny, like looking at the social media things, like how many times have I gone to bat for medics and safety in the last?
Absolutely. And we appreciate it. I mean, and I will be the first one. I will make fun of everyone equally, including myself, because I know I was a horrible person to my safety people. I don't need to do that. PPE, I don't need to wear that rain suit. Like, why?
Well, I think that's the thing, having the fun with it. And like I said, we all know the jokes that go around about safety and stuff like that. Now, people get offended. I think okay, there's definitely a line with anything, and you can tell
Yeah,
when people are making a joke, and you can tell when people are being serious because there's been some comments of like it's like basically effing safety, this and that. We don't need this, which is hilarious because it's like it's not coming out of your wage. You're not going to make any more money whether that safety person is there or isn't there. In some cases, you're probably going to make more money because you're going to get more hours out of the deal because they're saying, hey, to do this safely, this is how we got to do it. But once again, it gets back into that complacency thing of, I want to rush through this job. I want to keep moving on to the next one. It's pretty much ingrained in like, the only way we're going to make money is if we're rolling through everything at lightning fast speeds. But if you don't take the time and something happens, all it takes is one wreck and boom, your company's gone and nobody has any work now.
exactly. You don't make any money from the hospital bed,
No.
right?
And
So,
and as far as the making jokes, I mean, like I said, I'm always joking about the pickle. So like we have to be able to, especially when you get online, I find you got to be able, you gotta have a thick skin, but you also gotta be able to, kind of roll with those punches a little bit. People are gonna make stuff, and I always found it's easier to steer into the skid. People are gonna come in and start trolling me. I just let them. I kind of do what like Eminem did in 8 Mile. It's like, okay, here's all the stuff you're gonna make fun of me about. What do you have left to do? And
exactly.
it,
And I know that I've had a couple, like maybe three, really bad ones, and one just keeps popping back up. But I thought I blocked him, but you know what? You're the one that makes the comment on the video.
Mhm.
You are right there showing your own ignorance. Um, you haven't actually watched any of my previous ones or any of the podcasts or any of the lives where I've actually jumped on and said, hey, this is my background. You can't just assume that I'm safety. I think a lot of those people have either had a really poor safety person experience where unfortunately there are some people that are just trained by the book. I went to school for this. I have all of these letters behind my name and they're the classic. My book is telling you, telling
you're
me that
doing
you're
it.
doing your job wrong. Um, that's nice. My book tells you what the OHS standards are. That is my book. The code is what I go by. Everybody has their own jobs. I cannot know everything. And that's why I
No,
want to be out in the field and learning from you. But you also didn't do any background research on me either, because I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't just, sit on, at my desk and spin in circles. I've been out in the field. I've been on a drilling rig, pulling strings, pulling my wireline string up at
yep.
minus 40 where I can't see the dude in the cab because there's so much steam on the drilling rig floor.
Hmm.
You know, I've slept out in the middle of Saskatchewan for 3 days waiting for the rig to be ready again. I know what it's like. It sucks. So don't start a comment when you don't actually understand the experiences that I've had, right? And sorry that you've maybe had a bad experience with a safety person. Hopefully your next one is better.
I think it's partially that. Like you get some that definitely have a chip on their shoulder, but I think there's also some people that it doesn't matter who they are; they're just going to make ignorant comments online, and that's what I've come
Yeah.
to realize. Especially some people, they don't care how much facts you spit at them. They don't care about your experiences. They don't care about your history. They just want to put out their shitty opinion. They want to be heard. It's kind of that whole loud kid in the classroom. They want to be front and center and look at me, look at me. And unfortunately, we get so attracted to negativity because biologically we are looking for the tiger in the jungle. We're looking for that thing that is going to ultimately end us as an organism. So we're always looking for danger. That's why our ears perk up more so to bad news. Oh, there's a car accident, there's a fire, there's a flood, a forest fire. We perk up to that more so than, hey, this team won this, or hey, these kids had this awesome day at this event. There was
Mhm.
a special event. We tune more into the negative. So, and I find that with the comments as well. And I'm guilty of it myself. As I'm reading through, I'll make a funny video or what I think is funny. And I'm getting all the laugh emojis and of course, interacting, and I try to respond to comments as much as I can.
Mhm.
But it's like, oh, okay, I'll respond to that one later. I'll respond to that one later. And then boom, there's an ignorant ass comment, somebody saying some stupid shit. And then you're like, and then it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to jump in. And so I didn't respond to the 15 comments saying, this is funny, this brightened up my day. But yeah, I'm going to pick up this one out of the 15, 16 that's saying nice lisp or something to that effect. That it's like, okay. So then you pull up the keyboard and you're like, I'm gonna show them, or you're gonna do a video response. And I just found I'm rewarding negative behavior. So I had to start thinking, I'm like, okay, either delete the notification. So it's like, hey, it's still there, because unless it's something egregious, I typically won't block somebody. I won't delete the comment, but I'll delete the notification. If I'm scrolling through the comments, yeah, it'll be there, but there's a bunch of positive ones to respond to. Exactly. And I just start kind of retraining my brain, and to anybody else out there who's, getting into social media, making content, getting some of these negative comments, that's the best advice I can give is reward the positive commenters and you'll get more of it. If you give in to the negative ones, and been there, responded to lots of negative comments, that you'll start getting more of them, because people are like, oh, it's attention. It's positive or negative reinforcement.
Basically, yeah. And I do try, when I put out a funny video, or even a somewhat not funny video, different sense of humor, I try to respond to every single comment. It might just be emojis, because that's what I've got in me for the day. But I appreciate them taking the time to have a laugh at the videos. That's why I put them out there. Some of them are a little bit more sensitive, but I've still got to make you think once in a while. But I do try to respond to every one of them. If I'm not quite sure if I can read your comment right, because some of them you're just not quite sure, you just get a little like and we'll move on. But I don't delete or block. There have been some where it has been quite nasty. I've done one good video reply. I got my venting out, and that was back when I was still new and actually finally found my voice and actually did speaking video. I don't do a lot of them. Same guy, about a month later, same rude comments. I was very lucky, and I'm very lucky to have great followers who tore him apart for 24 hours in the comments. And I appreciated every one that she made. She's like, I've got time. I'm on bed rest. I'm having a baby. Let me at him. But she experienced that same kind of stuff because she was an oil field medic. She got tired of the same misogynistic crap. So she's like, you know what? Let me at him. And he got put in his place. And then that brought other people that kind of showed that this one profile is just the jerk. And it's like, thank you for having my back, because it is kind of nice to feel that warm fuzzy from people, strangers on the internet.
So first of all, love Mommy Juice. Like we interact with her personally. One of these days we got to make the trip down to go see her, because she's an amazing human being. As soon as you're explaining, I know exactly, because she's that no bullshit type. She's like, nope, let me at him. Actually, absolutely. Talked to her the other day. We had some issues we're dealing with. Something happened at the school or whatever. So we were talking to her, and she's like, yeah, that's bullshit. But I also too, I know the commenter, I'm not going to drag attention to it, but yeah, because I think I've blasted him a few times, and then he's, for a while there, he was just kind of obsessed. I'm like, you're obsessed with me, bro?
Aw, geez, thanks.
So yeah, it's
every time he comments, it just brings more attention to the video.
Well, and it's funny too. Like I've started having that happen too, where there's a negative comment, and yeah, the followers, the other commenters will be like, well, who do you think you are? And then there's people that will just go in and just eviscerate. It's like, I don't even have to do a thing. I'll just, and for me, the way I look at it now is, you put your words out there, you publicly commented on this, you can be accountable to your words. I'm not going to filter it. I'm not going to delete it, because there's some too where it's like, no, you put this stupid thing, you can delete it yourself if you feel that you misspoke, but I'm not going to take the liberty to delete your comment unless it's like super insensitive, something like that. I'm like, no, this has got to go. But even then, there's sometimes I leave it, because it's like, this is you, and then people can see you not you for who you are. the other people out there, I feel like I gotta stand there and figure out which way's left.
We're over an hour in. I figured you might have figured it out now.
Yeah, I'll have it figured out by the end, and then I'll forget by the time I record the next podcast. We'll when you get so used to the direction being one way, because everything's mirrored technically when you're on TikTok, whether you're recording a video or not. This is like recording StreamYard here. It's everything is directly, or it's the proper way, I should say. It's orientated how
It's
the
supposed
camera's
to.
facing. Yeah, exactly. It's all, like I said, mirrors are tough. So impact that social media's had, I guess, on your life in general. So because how long have you had your TikTok for now?
It'll be 3 years in like December-ish, November, December-ish.
That makes sense, because I feel like, yeah, it wasn't too much longer after I started mine that you popped on. I feel like we were kind of in that same time frame, so there's about a 6 month difference
Yeah.
between that.
And for me, it was definitely just start something small. I actually was just looking for an app to put music to a slideshow that I'd created. I'm like, I've got photos, I need music. I thought I was being funny, and it was. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do this. Well, let's make one of my dog. And then well, let's make one of me wearing like my balaclava up to here because it was minus freaking stupid. And yeah, but for the first couple, you didn't see my face. And then finally, I'm like, okay, I can do something like this. I could try a lip sync one, right? And actually show my face and put a filter on. And that's probably one of the biggest things through the social media is being able to just kind of come back out of my shell. I was the kid in junior high, high school even. I could not stand in front of a class to read out loud or do a presentation without turning 15 shades of red and stuttering over every word. Thankfully, 4-H helped with that, with public speaking, that kind of, the practice of that. And then, in through the safety world and just working with people and then giving safety meetings, doing the big things like that. Now I can speak in front of 200-300 people, but when you take a break from that stuff, you kind of go back into your shell, and that's what happened over the pandemic. Kind of, now we're living, just kind of off the grid by ourselves, and it's like, okay, now I can talk and interact with people again. And now it's gotten to the point where I'm meeting people outside of the social media world, meeting events, just randomly meeting. Hey, I met one of my neighbors, didn't know that the one TikToker, Kira, she was 8 miles from me. And
Yep.
so we did a couple events, like, we went to an Oilers game together, and I'd like to be able to hang out with her if we can ever get our schedules to match up again. But yeah, it's definitely kind of brought me back out of my shell, made me kind of help me get through a tough period in my life with separation and divorce and some mental health issues on that side. And yeah, and now it's to the point where, we're having, I'm actually able to, have a conversation for over an hour with a ring light in my face and, talk about what I've been through and, my career and, hopefully give some people a little push to, hey, get out there, take a step, try it. I know even through the social media, just some followers like, hey, are you guys hiring? I saw your trucks here. Yeah, send me your resume. And on those ones where it's like, we've known each other for a while, I'll actually give you my real email address. If not, you're going to get told to go to Indeed.
Yep.
But I tell you kind of what the ad says. But otherwise, I've gotten just in this, we're working with this one company. 2 drivers have come over. One's still here. One came over for about 6 months. Awesome guy. And now he's just found a job closer to home. But, we're reaching out. We're kind of sourcing people. And I'm like, hey, you know what? When I make a video about, hiring, it is hard to hire. And if a company can use the social media and just kind of give a little picture of what life in the field is like, then that's, I think, a great thing. Like, I know that on my social media stuff, like any of the posts where I put a truck in the background, or if I'm out on site and you can kind of obviously tell that I'm actually at an active work site, those ones definitely get probably 4 to 6 times the views that my regular little skit ones done in my bedroom or in my office get, because people are interested. They want to see the big trucks. They want to see what goes on behind the scenes. A lot of truck drivers, also wives and women working in the patch, women that are wanting to come over to the patch. but they don't know what it's like. So let's give them a little bit of a show of what goes on behind the scenes. It's not all just, driving up and down bumpy lease roads. There's a lot of active work and equipment and a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes to make that oil and gas come up out of the ground.
Oh, big time. And there's so many facets to it. Like I've covered off on a few things, but I was thinking about that, like how many different aspects to the industry. Actually, there was one question I asked one time when I was working up. I was working up at Meg, and I was thinking in a 24-hour period. This was in the heyday. This was like 2011, 2012, when everything was booming hard. Like there were rigs working everywhere, and I'm like, how much money is spent in the oil patch in Alberta in a 24-hour period? Like, what would that dollar value be? And it was probably something unreal, because you've got, like I said, rigs, you got equipment moving dirt, clearing leases, drilling. I already said drilling, but anyway, drilling, completions, pipe fitting, pipe lining. You've got the camps that go into it. You've got like there, and then there's other stuff. You got the geology. You've got regulatory. Like there's so many other aspects.
Exactly. Every hotshot driver that's delivering something, every fluid hauler that's taking something away, like there's so many different aspects. I actually really like some of the stuff that Lane is doing with showing his rig. I follow Horizon Drilling. One of the companies that we work with, Step, with James, he does some amazing videos showing, their specialized equipment, what it actually is like behind the scenes of a frac, showing them tearing apart pumps and, the amazing country, showing how hard some of those boys work, but at the same time showing the fun things that they do too. Recording the barbecues and the fun events, and all of the extras that come along with being out in the field.
Well, this was the conversation we started after my firefighter competition, but obviously it was also my anniversary, so I was like, okay, I gotta go. But like as soon as we had that conversation, I'm like, boom, lightning bulb, like, hey, we gotta have a conversation about this on the podcast, because I think it's a huge one. Because looking at companies, and especially too, we'll use like Precision Drilling and Lane was making content well before PD picked up on, even before they started their official page. Mm-hmm. And seeing some of these companies in the oil and gas industry specifically, like we've seen this with other businesses, mostly clothing stores, restaurants, bars. It was a lot less taboo. Hey, we're going to put some stuff on our social media because you're very public oriented. I found in the oil and gas industry specifically, it was a very much, no, we don't, like, no, you want to record something, you want to post, or you can, like, obviously it's like they can't control people from recording stuff, but you want to post something, hell to the no. We don't want any of that stuff going online, because I feel in the early days it was a lot of, hey, this is stuff going sideways. There was a lot of negativity, and there's stuff that definitely needs to be monitored and does need to be done properly, just so you're not causing any issues or showing anything that you're not supposed to. However, there is a lot more positive than negative that comes out of this, and showcasing that. And how do we reach people? Like, where are people now? Actually, this is one I did a little bit of research before we did this, and I went and looked up. So this factoid: average internet user spends more than 2.5 hours per day on social media, 30% more time than they spend watching traditional TV. So for somebody who's somebody who's using the internet, they're going to be on social media considerably more than sitting in front of a TV. And I can attest to this. I very rarely sit in front of a TV and watch like conventional satellite or cable anymore.
TV? What's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mind in.
I do more time scrolling. I mean, I was on this, I did a lot more Facebook prior to me coming on, and actually doing the Fire Steve thing. I had my own personal Facebook, and that was my social media, and I actually had to limit, because it was like I'm scrolling continually, but that's where I would get my information, because it's right in front of you. Mm-hmm. The same thing now with whether it be TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, still YouTube. This is where people are at. This is where they're spending their time. So how do we reach those people and get that, get that engagement? How do we get people interested in coming into these jobs, or interested in coming to work for your company? Like you said earlier, there's some people that seen your TikToks and they're like, hey, are you guys looking for people? I'm looking for work right now. And actually happened, I had one guy reach out to me. I made a TikTok using this audio, which was There's that Horse with No Name song. Road to the desert on a horse with no name. That one. So it's me jamming up to that song, and then it's like a Siri recording comes over top. Message from your foreman. Yeah, we no longer need your services. Pack your tools. You're done here at the end of the day. So the whole trend was basically me sitting in my truck just jamming out, and then that starts playing, and I'm like, and then kind of like look sad. I had people legitimately thought like, did you just get fired? Like they thought it was real. Like
Yeah.
I was like, it's a joke. I'm like, it's a trending, it's an audio. This was not even real. But I had a bunch of people reach out to me, like commenting on the thing. Did you just get fired? I'm like, why would I post that?
So not posting. I'm trying to be funny.
I was trying to be funny, but I obviously like Monroe the shit out of that. People probably looked at it and be like, Steve just got fired, and he posted it on like a live stream. Yeah, okay, I could see something inadvertently happening, but even then that'd be odd. But that was the big thing, is it wasn't even real, and people believed it. And I had a guy reach out to me. He's like, I need a cross shift. If you're looking for work, like, send me your stuff. I'll have you start here next week type deal.
I have had a couple of job offers for sure. I've actually had just a lot of people just reaching out saying, how do I get into industries? And I think creators like yourself that are showcasing, through, especially like through your pigging stuff. Now, I used to work for a company that we ran pigging trucks, and that was our job. And I just, learned a little bit from them. But then, watching your stuff, you learn even more. And so people that are actually showcasing the hows and whys we do stuff, I think opens up a lot of people's eyes to go, oh, I didn't realize that. And then, showcasing different things like Edison Motors, showing their future trucks and all of their big projects. Like those things are going to slowly integrate into the oil and gas industry, especially because I think they're doing an enzyme service rig that they're converting over. One of the service companies in
One of them, yeah. I can't remember which ones.
So companies like them, they're not directly related to the oil and gas industry, but their technology is. So bringing those kind of ideas crossing over into the oil and gas brings new ideas, new people in. And I think that's what the industry needs. We all want environmentally sensitive and safe, and, try to leave a smaller footprint, while having the social media interactions just sparks ideas.
Well, it's looking for those efficiencies, and that's one thing I do love about Edison Motors and their take on the thing of a hybrid. Basically, is taking something and saying, okay, well, we're not going to go full electric. We got a smaller diesel engine that's going to generate power, because we don't need to have this big honking engine, especially if you've got a tractor that's running down the highway primarily, where you can use regenerative braking, you can use other means, and you're going to run an electric drivetrain. So, and then you can pre-charge it, run off the batteries, and then, hey, you need a little bit extra, the generator kicks on, does its thing. I think efficiency is the way to go, which is something we desperately need. And that's what I love, seeing more people come online and voice their opinions, because you get a lot of noise, you get a lot of people saying all sorts of things. But I like when people come up with actual good ideas, and it's not one way or another. It's not, well, we're never going to transition and I'm going to run my old beat up diesel truck that's, burning through a quart of oil every 3 days. And the ones that are like, no, oil and gas needs to be completely banned and we need to get rid of it completely, because none of those operate in reality. I think we need to strive to do better, but also at the same time too, we got to realize that, we're not going to, this perfect ideology, we're just going to drop it tomorrow. Sure, yeah, we can get rid of oil and gas completely tomorrow. People are going to starve, people are going to die. And I know it sounds like a fear-mongering thing, but the only reason why we're able to produce the food and do the things that we need to do is because we have the energy needs met through the hydrocarbon, because we don't have other technologies that are ready to go as of yet.
Exactly. Maybe one day, but eventually, we have to work with what we have, and eventuality. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, and we have to use what we have and make it better.
And I will say too, we got to keep working. We have to develop that technology. So we have to be working on, hey, what are we transitioning to? But to cut off cold turkey is just nonsense, in my personal opinion.
Exactly.
That's what I love about social media. So, like I said, looking at it from that standpoint and going back to the whole, oil and gas companies, like I said, especially like Precision Drilling coming on, and not only, they could have very much pumped the brakes and told Lane, hey, you're done. We don't want you filming anywheres on any of our locations. This is not cool. This is not all right. They could have absolutely done that, pump the brakes and shut them down right then and there. As many of us do, we usually figure out a way to do it. Even when we get told we don't want you doing that, it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll green screen. I guess I'll do this. You'll kind of make caveats. You still want to make the content, or you just pivot your channel completely.
Yeah.
But luckily for him, and also too for Precision as a whole, they embrace it. They're like, hey, we want you to make social media for us. We want you to be that guy in our company. We're going to make content. We want to showcase what we do, how we do it right. We want to attract, and I'm sure with that, they've probably seen some form of conversion to say, okay, this is how, hires are coming in, because what is the younger generation doing? They're definitely not sitting in front of the TV watching conventional television. They're sitting on their phones on Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram. You gotta meet people where they're at.
Exactly. And I mean, even like revolving it back to where my industry, like on the fracking side of it, I've actually gone and spent a lot of time on the Step Energy site because of James's videos. It's like, wow, okay, so I want to now know how that piece of equipment works, right? Their site setups are completely different to ours. So for me, I don't ever get to go to a Step site. It's just not compatible for me to go to their site to do a worksite inspection, and I don't ride with my drivers if we do go.
Yeah.
So, but to watch his videos and learn from that, it's like, okay, well now, I have a really good opinion of their company because he's showing me what they're doing. They're not hiding behind a great big cement wall. They're actually taking you behind the scenes and showing you what they're doing. Now, is everything perfect? No. Have I seen stuff in there, one guy not wearing safety glasses? That's reality of life. Somebody's going to forget a safety glass. You're going to have a little puddle of oil. But you show those little things, you show the cleanups, you show that this is real life. It's not all shiny, clean rigs. Stuff gets dirty, stuff breaks. Now, on my side, if I do ever post a picture of an incident or anything like that, it is a minor incident. It looks major, but it's in the grand scheme of things is minor. But I'm limited to, I can't post anybody's personal, like there will never be an injury unless it is sent to me and said, hey, make a video out of this with your blessing, I will. But, for my own personal company, I like my job. So,
no, exactly. It's treading that walking that line, especially because, and there's certain things too, especially on, like, I look at the fire services side specifically, and I typically just mock up everything. There's a few videos now. The one I did, like, from when I was on the Chuck Egg in 2019, where we did the pump change, that video there was released as part of a documentary. So I was like, hey, well, it's released to the public already. There's nothing that can confuse there. Otherwise, everything else I'd be looking at posting, I would have to go through the proper appropriate channels. And once again, it's that same thing of making sure that you're not, releasing anyone's information. And also too, because the issue before with social media where a lot of people pump the brakes is, especially when Facebook was fairly new, people be sharing pictures of an accident. They'd be driving by an accident scene and they'd be shooting pictures off of this car crash. And people are finding out that a loved one of theirs is, injured or no longer with us because of social media instead of hearing it through the proper channels. So that's the big thing that we're looking to avoid. But I know that, specifically what we can, especially in your position, what you can and cannot post. Is everything perfect on a job site? Are there things that go sideways? Absolutely. Things break. What did we do to fix it is the big thing.
And, I know that I've, before I even kind of had any big followers, I did post the occasional company logo. Quentin taught a lot of us that, recording on certain job sites are, you are violating their policy that you signed, right? So great to see that he's back up working. But out of respect for the clients or, the other companies, the people that don't want to be on social media, then I won't. That is why, everyone's like, oh, well, you're not really a safety person. You just put on coveralls. I do it from my home because I respect the other company's opinions, right? And if there is somebody in my TikToks, they have 100% fully agreed to it.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of people are on TikTok. A couple of my drivers, you know what? I will completely post them. I will make fun of everybody. So I think, I've made fun of you a couple of times. It's just, but operators, I have to.
Well, and that's the funny thing too. We go around, we razz each other up, especially operators. Oh, freaking guys are sleeping all day. I've poked fun at operators more times than I think anyone else has, especially field operators. Even though I'm a plant and a field operator, I felt both roles. I was funny because we had a couple of guys out here that were just solely field, like they had no facility. So I just loved razzing the shit out of them. And that was the big thing there. That was the inspiration behind it. And the one guy I used to stay in camp with, Peter, I was always like, hey, Peter, this one's about you. And he's like, oh, fucking asshole.
And I know that I love to pick on my drivers, but at the same time, I might not have a class 1, but I do have a class 3. I was a driver. So I'm making fun of myself. But what they don't know is that, you know what? I would like to get my class 1. I might make fun of you, but I still want to be one of you.
I joke. I joke because I care.
Exactly.
Well, you see it in the trades big time too. Like everybody rips on electricians. Everybody. Like electricians. And honestly, if I was to get into a trade, I would go as an electrician because I think it's the most versatile one. Also, too, it kind of plays. There's a whole with me doing having my fire inspector certification. There's things where I wish I was an electrician because it would increase my knowledge base on some of the things that I'm looking at as far as like electrical code and crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody rips on the electricians and the scaffolders. I feel like the scaffolders get it too, but I think Quentin's got that one. Like he's got that one on lock big time.
Exactly.
But even too, like I said, just seeing the doors that are opening, and I think, and that's the big thing. And I think you're in the same boat as me. Is getting it more commonplace out there, showing some of these companies that hey, look, this is a beneficial thing. Like coming up with go through the process of setting up a policy. Hey, this is what we want to see. This is what we don't want to see. This is what we and everything needs to funnel through a point of contact. But people are proud of what they do. I found this not only in the oil field, but also in the fire department. They all kind of go hand in hand, but especially in the oil field, we're proud of the work we do. We want to showcase, hey, this is me doing the thing that I'm happy to do. And it's kind of a buzzkill when you're told, no, you can't showcase any things that you do. And then people just start figuring out other ways to work around the rule, basically the stone wall that's in front of them. So if you can say, okay, well, here's your pathway. Here's what you're allowed to do. These are your no-go areas, but here's your corridor. Here are the things that you're able to do. And these are the things that we want to see. And we will 100% stand behind you if you're staying within that framework. People they'll file in. They'll be like, okay, cool. I'm allowed to do this. It's when you say no go, you can't do anything. It's like, telling the kid, you can't go out and hang out with your friends at all. Well, they're going to sneak out the window and go hang out with them anyways.
Exactly. All of a sudden, everybody's little pocket will have their cell phone sitting there recording. No, not recording, but recording. And that's when you start to get distracted. So, you know what? Let them have a little bit of fun, record a few cool things, and then put it away and get back to work. Work on that as your wind down. I mean, that's what TikTok has been for me. Not so much lately, just because lots of stuff going on. But now that I'm kind of settling into a little bit more of a routine, I can get back into making the TikToks at home and not relying on the reposts from last year's stuff or the year before, even though they're funny as heck. Or at least I think so. But I can, take that little mental break, get back into making new content and with new sounds and letting my brain take that 2 hour, spend a little time scrolling, a little bit of time recording, editing, and posting. And that's my little wind down time.
Well,
so that I'm ready to go back and do it again the next day. I take my little clips or pictures here and there, and then focus on that stuff at home so that I'm not focusing on it at work.
Well, and I think, like you mentioned there, reposting some of the old ones, and you find some gems in there. And the biggest thing and the best advice I can give is that so many people are like, well, what do I need to make? And I want to make videos that are going to do well. And obviously we put work into it, so we want to see them go well. But I always just tell people the biggest thing is make content you're happy with. Make content you're going to be laughing at. Like the one I recently did with the whole Hawk 2 girl trend that's fucking blowing up everywhere. It's the one with the pigs. I'm
Mhm.
still like, every time I'm seeing my notifications pop up, I keep chuckling to myself. And when that one comes around at a later time, I'll be like, that's freaking hilarious. Will the trend get played? Well, I feel like the trend's starting to get played out. Like any of the big trends that happen, like was it last year
Mhm.
with the corn? It's corn. It's got the juice.
Yeah.
Like all these trends, they go through their cycle where it's new, it's exciting, everybody's doing it, and then it's like, okay, we're done with this. But
Yeah.
at this point in time, I was like, okay, this one will work, and it hit perfectly.
Mhm.
So you make content that even if it doesn't do well, if you had fun doing it and making it and you get a kick out of it. And the big thing to keep in mind as well is if you make a video and there's 5 comments and everybody's laughing, or saying, hey, this brightened up my day. And I've had a few of those, like video that
Mhm.
I put a bunch of work into thinking this is going to pop off, it's going to be hilarious, I get maybe 500 views, but somebody commented, hey, seen this video, brightened up my day, I was having a shit day, this brightened it up. Whatever, worth it.
Exactly. And there is even that sound. Why do you keep making the videos? And it's true. If I can make one person smile or giggle, then it's worth it. Because if you
uh,
can't do that during the day, then might as well go back to bed.
well, and that's the big thing there, is that you need to, like I said, exactly, make something that you're proud of, something that you're happy about. And if you've achieved that goal, then cool, you've achieved that goal, you've made someone smile, and it does get out there. Even to sometimes we feel like we're not having a huge impact or anything like that, it is doing stuff in the background. I've had people reach out to me. Actually, I'm starting to, I mentioned in the last 2 podcasts, is I'm starting to do some social media stuff with a organization here in Alberta that's based in mental health, Boots on the Ground Alberta. And the big thing with them is, when I was talking with their social media coordinator, she was saying, you've had a bigger impact in the first responder community than you realize. She's like, everybody, a large portion of people know who you are. And I'm like, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but people get to know, like in the last talking about running into people in the wild, when I was doing that fire course in Slave Lake, I made a TikTok on this actually, but Thursday night we went out for supper. I went out for supper with my fire department. We're walking out, and I was holding the door open for for my crew, but then there's also a couple walking out behind us. So I kind of held the door open. Everybody kind of came through, and then I walked away. And then the one guy's like, "Is that Fire Steve?" I didn't hear it, but my colleague did. So made the video. He didn't see it, but then the one I posted yesterday talking about fireworks, he's seen that one, and he's like, "Hey, were you in Slave Lake the other day?" I'm like, "Actually, I'm gonna tag you in a video." He's like, he's like, it was wing night. He's like, I should have come said hi, but it was wing night. I was having a good time. He's like, I didn't know if it was you, so I didn't want to embarrass myself. And I'm like, oh, I mean, we know for next time. But yeah, it was kind of funny having interactions like that. But
Absolutely.
no, I appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you? Give us your social media handles, where people can find you, all that sort of thing.
I am Instagram when I can remember, and Facebook, all under Safety Girl Tanya. And then I do have a separate account for the worksite distraction. It's the stuff that Safety Girl can't say. There's a lot less coveralls, a lot more cleavage, but I do have to keep some of the work stuff professional, and I think it also gives me that little bit of cross interaction, because I do have people that follow me on both accounts, but I find that the one is more of a work related, God, I hate my job, those kind of things, or
Yeah,
relationship based. It's more of my diary and the fun stuff that I want to say that I can't really say, because sometimes I am repping a company,
yeah.
or I'm repping the industry. I don't want that negative connotation always tied to those certain videos. So separated off. Safety Girl is the one. The alter ego is the worksite distraction. So, and those are on worksites on TikTok and Instagram. So,
Okay. Yeah, and I
but
think I've done that too
Safety Girl
with
is
what
funnier.
the multiple accounts, I kind of, not that I abandoned the other ones, but it was that same concept. I wanted to have kind of more of the straight laced stuff as Fire Steve, and then the more shenanigans was Fired for how long, and then Fired Up was all my ranting stuff that I didn't want. Basically, that was my, if this account gets nuked, it gets nuked. This was my rant opinion page, and pretty much it was a way of kind of like breaking apart things. If people were just there for the comedy from Fire Steve or kind of my main straight stuff, they didn't have to worry about anything political or anything polarizing. I did all that on Fired Up. I've kind of abandoned all that. I just kind of put everything on my main for now. I mean, I might go back to them at some point, but I completely understand having the two separate accounts for different reasons and different, because you're like, okay, certain people follow me on this one, don't follow me on this one, or follow me on that one, whatever floats your goat.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you need the separation. Sometimes there's only so much you can do with safety and work related stuff. And like family follows the safety girl stuff. A lot of the worksite distraction stuff is stuff that I wouldn't want my nephews or my grandma seeing. So it's like, yeah, that one's a little bit more the 18 plus for the jokes. And a lot of them are jokes that I wouldn't make at work anyway. So they don't need to be tied to my work persona too.
No, and it's compartmentalization, and that's it's a good thing. I had a train of thought. I forget where my brain kind of squirreled there for a sec. I was like, it's good to have that separation between the two. Yeah, I had a thought on it, but now that the thought just went, it was like,
I know sometimes I get a little bit burnt out on the safety girl stuff. It's like, how can I make that sound funny? And I can't. So it's like, you know what? Switch it up, train your brain to do something different for a little bit, and then the other ideas come a little bit better.
Well, okay, that's where I was going with it. There's things that, like you said, you would post on Safety Girl. It has to do with that, but you still want to be yourself. You still want to be the individual. And I feel like sometimes we do start to assume a persona we put out there, especially if we kind of typecast. If we're always in that same outfit, we're in the hard hat, we're in the coveralls. This is how we look. It's hard to break away from that. So then people, and I feel like, and at some point I am going to bring Quentin on, but I do want to bring up, he got stuck in that whole dance trend. And I know for a fact he hated that dance. He's like, if people could stop asking me to do the dance, would be great. But also too, that's what people are coming for. And it's like, he's like, there's more to be than that. And actually his page didn't even start off with him doing dances. It was just kind of a hodgepodge of everything. So sometimes you just want to be able to do your own thing away from the more popular aspect. I feel like even with myself, I blew up big time last year and even this year with the wildfire information. So I feel like there's a lot of people that come to me for that. And I would be smart to compartmentalize and be like, okay, this is the fire stuff and here's my shenanigans. But if people are coming to see me, you're getting it all.
Like, maybe one day the accounts will merge, but right now we need the break. So
absolutely. No, and it works awesome. And however a person does it, it's definitely the way to go. That is the smart way to do it. I'm not that smart some days.
Me neither.
But I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, consider subscribing to it. We're going to be coming out once a week is the plan, barring nothing crazy. I mean, sometimes that may happen where I can't get a podcast out in time, but my goal is to have them out weekly. So if you enjoyed this, give it a like. If you're watching on YouTube, super helps the engagement, helps me build my channel some more. Share it out to some friends that you feel may enjoy this sort of thing or just something to listen to in the background. But we also got it on Spotify, Apple, and pretty much every podcast directory wherever you find them. Now, for those that are watching on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio version and you want a little challenge, I want people to go back and tell me or type in the comments, how many different drinks did I drink from during the course of this podcast? Because I feel like I was sipping on something different quite frequently. So you probably didn't even pick up on it, but I didn't even think to ask this until afterwards, but it'll be interesting to see how many people will be like, yeah, here's the number, or if we're going to get some random guesses. But yeah, appreciate, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Go follow Safety Girl Tanya on all the platforms, whichever ones, the TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. As always, I'm the host, Fire Steve. This was some more blazing banter, and hopefully everybody has a wonderful rest of their night. Later, everyone.
Bye.